Hello again. So I was going through some notes on my phone and found a video idea that I had forgotten about that I really would like to touch on. And that is not only like I've been through a victim, or I should say on the receiving end of domestic violence in terms of physical abuse, but also um, I wanted to talk about the impact of witnessing domestic violence, the impact it had on me as a child, and I guess some of the lingering effects now that I'm heading toward my 30s. Um, but so some of these things I've witnessed, and we're talking starting about from ages probably three and up, is what is like coherent in my memory. And a lot of this stuff I want to point out too is I remembered a lot of it. A lot of it has to do with witnessing my oldest sister being physically abused and tortured. Um, a lot of it I had gone to my mother and asked about things and, tried to talk it out and try and figure it out over the years because I want to say it was like 2007 that she had went no contact with my entire family. Me and her later reconnected, but besides the point. Because of my mother and father's abuse, but she was my mom's favorite in terms of um being attacked, being singled out, all that good stuff. And I noticed for years that it's like I knew it was bad, but then somehow, like, whenever me and my sister would talk about it, is I didn't realize that I had severely invalidated her. I had been gaslit and indoctrinated by my mother and my father about that. It was all, I'm saying, it was more so Rachel and things weren't that bad. And going to my mother to talk about these things, if you have watched my other videos, you know a little bit about her. And if you haven't, let's just say she is not credible in any means. She will swear up and down on the lives of her children and everything that is holy, that the sky's green, and will double down and stick to it no matter what evidence or proof you have. So I knew years ago that she was not a reliable source, especially if it was talking about something that could possibly, incriminate her or make her look bad, break that facade that she was, a good mother and she was just in a bad spot and she didn't do anything wrong. Um, Thinking back on instances, there's okay, my mom was worked Monday through Friday job like during the day. So then she had the weekends off, and usually on weekends she'd do like a big Sunday breakfast. Okay. Um, it's like, oh, come and enjoy breakfast. But yeah, how are you gonna enjoy breakfast when your mom woke you up by yanking your ass out of your bed by your hair and beating the fuck out of you for whatever the reason was? Um, mm, oh gee, this is a good one too because I was thinking about this earlier. Um, my oldest sister had taken a big brunt of the physical abuse because the way my mother put it was she resented my sister for keeping her in a relationship with my dad who was abusing her, which we'll just put that out there. How the hell is your child that wasn't even, born yet? When you got married, she was pregnant in her wedding. How is it your child's fault that you chose to stay with someone you already knew was bad? Like before they even got married and stuff, they were living together, and my mom told me she witnessed my dad and my aunt, his sister, fighting and throwing a clothes iron across the house at each other, like shit that's unacceptable, shit that is not normal. And then you chose to go in anyway, and then you're going to physically torture and beat your child because it's her fault. again, can't take responsibility for anything. Woe is me, everything happens to me, the world is against me, all that nonsense. Um, my sister had run away for about a week um, to escape my mom's abuse. My mom figured out where she was at, brought her home, and then called the police on her and got her sent to juvenile detention for trying to escape. That was her primal instincts. Like, we got to survive. You need to get away from this psycho. And my mother put her in jail for self preservation. And, I can remember sitting, I'm like 4, sitting on the floor in the kitchen next to my sister with the police officers in the kitchen before she got arrested and taken away. Like, it's upsetting to me even to think of that now when you think of the whole picture of it, that my sister was trying to protect herself from being brutally beaten over the most trivial shit, or maybe even just because my mom was mad about something that didn't even involve her. She was the outlet for all of her anger. Um, oh God. When my sister went no contact, my mom had been co-signing for their heat because where my sister and her family lived was they had propane heat, so giant propane tanks outside the house and whatnot. My sister was in her early 20s, so she was still building credit and all that. And keep in mind, my sister hadn't, like, my mom only helped one child out of 3 with anything. And that, of course, was my malignant narcissist sister. Bought her or gave her first car that she wrecked in 6 months. Full on paid her rent, car payment, car insurance, utilities, everything for like 7 years. Like, was taking food out of my mouth that I was the only one still living at home to pay my sister's bills because she refused to be an adult. Anyways, when my sister went no contact, keep in mind my sister had always paid, um, but she had co-signed for the heat. She had called and shut off my sister's heat in the middle of winter when she had a 4-year-old as retaliation for how dare you not talk to me. Um, I could talk for hours. Um, Witnessing my parents fighting. I can picture a specific event right now, what they were both wearing, where it took place, everything. Watching my dad shove my mom around and her just, oh, okay, time to go to work. Watching my dad bust down doors and be hiding in the bedroom, terrified because he's freaking the fuck out over nothing, over nonsense, which was usual, which is typical of narcissistic rage. Never a good reason, and never a good reason for violence. Um, oh God, there's so much. And just all of this, as a child, well, of course, fear, confusion of why the hell we putting up with this? Why is this still being allowed to go on? Um, and I was the only one that would regularly beg and plead my mother, who I thought was the only sane one. Yeah, sadly mistaken, but plead and plead and plead and plead and plead. Please get us out. Please get us out. Please get us out. There was times she worked third shift and it was me, my middle sister, the narc, and her boyfriend at the time. She would sit there and hold me down on the ground. She was bigger than me, choked me until I was almost unconscious. And I remember making eye contact with her boyfriend, and he just sat there and watched. My mom would frequently come home, and, we both have fat lips, black eyes. I might have not been a strong kid, but I'm gonna I'm gonna do something to fight back for myself. No one else would. But back on track is witnessing all these things as a child: fear, confusion, um distrust of, the adults in my life, distrust of anything they said. um oh girl, there's so many different feelings I can't even pinpoint right now. um but how that relates to me in adulthood as well, things that still affect me from that is, for one thing, um common side effect, which is not just from witnessing physical abuse, also from verbal abuse directed at me or at others, whatever. It's harder for me to trust people. Um, Especially like, trusting someone to the point of like it's almost an automatic thought of when someone gets angry, they're gonna hit me, they're gonna try and ruin my life, they're gonna do whatever. I'm a grown man and still getting better about it, but there was a long time that I would, if there was a man walking toward me on the sidewalk, I would go to the other side. I would not make eye contact with men. 'Cause- You know what I'm saying? Two sexual assaults as an adult, and then a lot of this physical violence was either provoked, initiated, or completely carried out by, a prominent male figure in my life, if we'd like to call him that. It um and even to this day, I have anxiety about, arguments with my husband, about if we have an argument or a disagreement. Okay, most people, even in healthy relationships, um, you get in an argument, it gets heated, whatever. Okay, a lot of times you need to separate, you need to chill out. Especially, I got a big ass motherfucking mouth. So the best thing to do is cool off, look at it from, you know, not, anger goggles. But then it's always the thought of like, oh, what if he were to hit me? Or, he's going to have the worst possible reaction. He's going to do this or he's going to do that. None of it comes true because, I'm done carrying on the cycle of my family's abuse. Um, I guess also something that I'm starting to realize now is, how do I want to describe it? Almost the uncertainty about life and about anything. Like I could be in a perfectly good mood, um and then it's just like something bad's gonna happen. It's like almost that sense of impending doom, that you get during like a panic attack, anxiety attack, etc. But I don't even have to be anxious. As a child walking on eggshells your whole life, you learn to anticipate, um, other people's emotions. You learn to anticipate if, you know, mom or dad comes home. Okay, there's at least a 80% chance that they're going to walk in the door screaming about something. They're going to walk in the door pissed off. Um, just trying to predict things to protect yourself. And even at 28 years old, I still have that to where I'm just, wait, things are too good. Like, is the other shoe gonna drop? And you have to talk yourself down from that. As for one thing, it's not an easy way to live. It's not a way to live at all. Um, but just that, I guess, they say you seek chaos in adult relationships or just in general in your life, intimate relationships, friendships, uh, 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 co-worker relationships, whatever. If you're used to chaos, you will subconsciously seek out chaos at every turn because any type of peace is uncomfortable. It doesn't mean you are actively seeking out chaotic people or abusive relationships, but it's the fact that chaos is normal, chaos is familiar, and peace, it's very good. It's very nice. Damn, the closest now to ever finding complete peace. Um, that is the unfamiliar, and the fact that you literally have no experience to draw on what a peaceful life, a peaceful home life, a peaceful relationship, whatever. And that's not to say there's not going to be issues. Your roof's going to spring a leak, or your dog shits on the floor, or your husband or wife doesn't clean up their crumbs, whatever. There's going to be something. It's life. We don't live in a dystopian world where nothing ever goes wrong. um but you don't know what to expect in peaceful relationships, in healthy relationships. You have no experience to draw on. So if you continually seek out chaos, again, it's not a conscious thing. You repeatedly seek out that chaos, and then what does it do? It's hell to go through, of course, and it's terrible, and you know that, but you know what to expect. You know the playbook. And once you've been, especially growing up in a childhood abuse setting, a toxic family dynamic, is you know the playbook. Maybe a different person, you know what I'm saying? They got a different set of psycho rules that they abide by, but in all the time it took me to like kind of get the gist of my family and the people around me and how they ticked, because again, I have always been a fucking, I'm a rattle that bell. I I'm a scream. I'm a say fuck that. I'm gonna say what the hell are you doing? Like, I paid attention and I figured out how these motherfuckers work. And in my adult life now, I can meet someone, couple of minutes, I'm like, okay, something seems off. Ask some strategic questions, pay attention to body language and where the conversation heads, and within 15, 20 minutes, I can tell what they're about for the most part. Generally, the fact that they're usually narcissistic or egotistical or whatever toxic trait they have, you get used to it. You're almost a private investigator, right? Yeah, and that also, little off topic, but hey, we're rambling, we're here. Um, it's just the effects never end. Witnessing that type of abuse, you can heal from it, you can improve your thought process, even to the point like, okay, it's almost reaction now after years of practice. Is like, okay, um, if me and my husband were to get in a fight, me 10, 15 years ago, would automatically, no matter what the fight was about, would sit there and self blame and put myself down and, you know, just fuel this negative self talk, because what was fostered in my childhood? Self blame. Everything was my fault. And again, children, when their parents, when their caregivers are abusive, children do not have the capacity to say, my mom's a narcissist, my dad's a drunk, whatever. That's their survival. So even if their parent or caregiver is hurting them, they're going to get closer for that protection, even though it's never going to come from that. Um, but it becomes reflexive after so long to not go to that self-blame place or self-pity or what have you, guilting yourself, putting yourself down. um but if you really think about it, and the way I love to think about this is, I like to separate things in my mind because my lovely, lovely therapist, who is not my therapist anymore, um, had said to sit with the discomfort. And I think this was about some, anxiety or whatever, but it's helped me a lot in dealing with inner child stuff because that, I'm saying that has leeching effects, we'll call it that. So if you think of if someone takes a oil drum of radioactive waste, but it's kind of rusty, it's not too sturdy, and they throw it in a lake, slowly and slowly that waste is going to leak out. It's going to start poisoning the fish. They're going to die. Their children are going to hatch with like 3 heads and a dog foot. It's going to fuck shit up, but it's not going to be noticeable at first. It's going to take a while. Same thing with the inner child stuff. All this trauma that you went through as a child, all these things you witnessed, all those things that you were on the receiving end of will leach out. And it was hard for me at first to really get used to the idea of talking to my younger self like I'm a different person. It's still me, obviously, and it's more metaphorical, but is to actually, you know, when I'm triggered, when I'm reliving trauma, is I really pay attention to the feeling now of what it feels like, and that was how I felt then. It's distressing now, but that is an old emotion, an old reaction from myself when I was younger, going through these things, witnessing these things, whatever. Is so I try my best to sit with the discomfort, to sit with my younger self that are separate from me, that these feelings are separate from me because they are. This was how I felt in a situation 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. And then it becomes more of like, okay, you have a stomach ache, take some Pepto. You have a headache, take some Advil. And you view these trauma responses as more as symptoms because they are. They're symptoms from the things you were put through. They're symptoms of, the stress, the incredible stress your body was under for, maybe years, maybe decades. These things were all symptoms. And when you're able to compartmentalize that, it was really groundbreaking for me in terms of it made it slightly easier for me to cope with these things, cope with these triggers. Because, like I said, all those years ago, some of these things that I've told you about, I witnessed at, 3 to 5 years old. And it's still as clear as day. And there's still times, you know, I still flinch when a door slams. If someone says my name without me knowing, and especially a man's voice, I will flinch. I will jump. Um, there's still bodily reactions to the abuse, and emotional abuse is absolutely terrible. It's meant to dismantle you as a person, to tear you down from the inside out. Um, but I will say how do I want to say it? Being hit is one thing because I've been hit by people that aren't family, and the hurt, especially as a child, to see that rage and that violence directed at you from your mother or your father or a sibling. It's not, okay, you hurt my face. It's, how could you? like your family unit is supposed to be your protection, especially, when you're a child, you're the youngest child, your family's supposed to protect you, they're supposed to support you, they're supposed to, help you grow up and whatever. But then the betrayal of being, physically harmed by that, or, watching one parent physically harm another, or your parents physically harm one of your siblings, is every single time that happens. That was, I guess, the last emotion I felt back then was betrayal. Um, just betrayal of caregivers, betrayal of every like silent oath a parent is supposed to take, love, protect, provide for, and they fail at every turn. And then they don't just fail, is they actively work in the wrong direction. Yeah. Well, I guess that's it for this video. Little ramblings, but hey, that's just me. We're just talking here. We're opening up a conversation about it. And again, subscribe, comment below, feel free to message me. Um let's talk about it. Child abuse is something that is silenced by abusers and enablers, and it won't be like that anymore.